How's everybody doing? Woo! I got a woo. Hey, I'm Bryan Clark. I'm the Director of Product for Open Source at GitHub.
And I'm Justin Hutchings. I'm a Senior Product Manager on all the security features that we've shipped today.
We're going to talk about open source security. Yeah, thank you. So here's how we're going to do this. In this breakout session, we're going to talk about two things kind of in depth. So one is going to be key aspects of the security advisories, the thing that we shipped today. And then we're going to walk through a bit of a demo. So we want you to see some of the real details of what security advisories does. And then we're going to give you the overview of how you see it in action. You can also follow along at home if you want. We'll give you some instructions on that later. So first, let's start with some kind of common security processes. So we talked to a number of different open source and industry groups about how they handle vulnerabilities and what they do. And we've been looking at this process kind of from the lens of the reporter on one aspect here, which is up over there, and then the maintainer on the other side. So you're seeing two personas and how they deal with this security vulnerability process. So first, let's imagine we have a researcher who found a vulnerability and they'd like to report it. First step there is they need to find the repository. They need to find the source code. Hopefully this is pretty easy. From there, what they need to do is understand how we report the security vulnerability. How do you disclose this? Often this is embedded in a README. This is somewhere in the docs. Whatever the security process is, it's a little bit hidden at first sometimes because this isn't a common event for open source repositories to deal with. So what we've done is we've created a new type of standard community file in order to help GitHub projects maintain this.
And if you did the keynote this morning, you might have heard about the security policy. And the key aspects that we've done here are provide really good discoverability on this security policy. We've added it to our new repo security tab. And what we've done is make this also very easy for organizations to set once for all of their repos. So we know that if you happen to be a CNA or happen to have your own security team, you've probably got one process for everyone in the organization, and you can set it once and be done. But that's not all. Click.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. We also wanted to make sure that we actually interrupt users when they're about to file an issue. Because one of the biggest problems that we've seen with security vulnerability reports is when people go and file a public issue. As soon as you do that, you've just released a 0-day onto the world. Congratulations. And so now what happens is if you have a security policy in your repo, we'll actually prompt you during the issue template selection to say, if you're reporting a security vulnerability, please read the policy and report it the right way.
OK, so now in our process, a researcher can use what is hopefully a private channel. Email or a mailing list, whatever the project has disclosed as their processes for connecting with the maintainers. From there, usually the researcher, once connected, discusses the vulnerability that they found. They're talking about version ranges, they're talking about severity, and then the maintainer often agrees, OK, this is a vulnerability, we're going to go ahead to the next step. So now we kind of jump over to the maintainer perspective at this point. The maintainer's job here is to kind of coordinate with anyone else in the project. So it could be other maintainers. It could be if they have a larger group has security advisors or a security team that can help. Often the maintainers do this coordination in an issue in what we call a shadow repository. So shadow repos are a private copy of an open source project that someone has cloned into another space so they can have a private space to discuss. So they use this to work in private and trying to coordinate what's happening and what their plan is for fixing this vulnerability.
And the big challenge that we get with these shadow repos is obviously, other than the pain of just managing a separate repo just so you can go hide from your public users and contributors, you try and do things that are clever. So someone reported an issue to you, maybe through your HackerOne or your email address, and you say, I'm going to bring that person in so they can help me validate this particular vulnerability and all the patches I've made for it. Great, sounds good so far. The challenge is, after you finish that issue, did you remember to delete them? Or did you just let somebody that's seeking bounties sit on your shadow repo with full access to all of the security patches that you mean to make that are not yet publicly disclosed. It's a really common problem, and we want to make sure that anything you do in this space, we make really easy to revoke and control. Next, please. So in the maintainer security advisories, what we've done is we've defaulted the security set to the smallest set possible by default. So when you come in with a new maintainer security advisory, you start out just with your organization owners and your repo admins. We think those are the people that are most trusted for security fixes. And if you have people you need to bring in, whether it's part of your engineering team that aren't admins, or if it's an outside collaborator, one of your best users, one of the security researchers, you can bring them in and give them access just to this particular advisory and all of the collateral that goes with that. And whenever you decide that you're done with that particular user, you can remove them just as easily.
Cool. So the next step here, maintainers create pull requests to start generating these fixes. They're working within a shadow repository. They've coordinated, understood the problem, and now they're trying to make different branches, fixes against those branches in order to finally publish something that will actually address the vulnerability.
And if you've had to deal with this before, you know just how painful it is, right? You're trying to target like 5 release branches. You know, you're coordinating possibly several vulnerabilities at the same time. The bigger your project, the more likely this is. You know, we talked to the folks from Rails, and they were telling us just how painful this is for them as they try and target multiple versions and deal with all of the combinations of permissions and permutations. So we put together a space in the security advisory, excuse me, where you can create a temporary private fork. And what this gives you is one repo that is directly associated with that advisory, and you can put all of your patches there and merge them in one go. Let's look at the next one. So you can see after you've created your temporary private fork, this looks normal. It looks like a normal repo, and it is. It's just locked down to that same user list that we talked about in the previous slides. And you can go ahead, next please. Thank you. You can go ahead and tack on as many pull requests as you need to target all of the release assets that you care about.
Cool. So what we're doing is trying to wrap up the entire security advisory system into one section, one place where you can kind of view, here's the discussion, here are all the fixes we've been working on, here are the people we have access to, because now you're at the stage where it's time to publish, right? It's time to reveal the work that you've been doing in private and make it public. So here, you're going to merge changes into your public repository. You're going to publish packages. You can often do this via CI. So when the merge changes from your private work go out to the public repository, you can trigger off a CI build, which then publishes into whatever package registry system you're using. And then you want to publish the CVE and the advisory. And again, here, we've implemented some stuff that will help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we think is so important out of security advisories is the ability to alert downstream dependencies. And so, you know, we put together a brief form. Most of the fields on this are completely optional. Just asking for some basic things that GitHub can use to help codify this to target the right people with security alerts. So we ask for affected versions and patched versions, but very importantly, we also really care about what package you're actually fixing, if it's a package. We know that many repositories have many packages. I picked on Rails earlier. They're a mega mono repo that has like 10 or 12 packages that drop out of it. And so it's important that you tell us what specifically you're fixing, and then, you know, give your users as much information as they can to assess the impact of exactly what the vulnerability was. We know not everyone's going to patch immediately, so you want to provide as much information as you can so people can make the determination on what's the right, you know, risk to reward on taking the patch now versus waiting until maybe they have a better time to release. Finally on here, I want to mention we also would love for you to cross-reference with your CVEs. So if you're a CNA or work with a CNA, if you drop that in, we will go ahead and link all those things together. We won't double alert. And so that'll really help with the alerting process downstream so your users Don't see anything too noisy.
Yeah, all this data that you're filling out here, this is what goes into security alerts. So this is what users are going to see when they get a security alert on the package that you've created an advisory for. So we're really taking a lot of that ability to alert your downstream users and kind of bringing it in-house so that maintainers have that option. And this is where you're filling out this information to say, here's the full impact, here is a recommended fix in order to reduce the kind of burden on downstream users. So next up, Justin here is going to walk through a demo.
All right, so I normally like to do these live. We don't have the AV for that, but what we're going to do is I have baked a demo beforehand, and if our folks in AV will play the video, please, we will walk through exactly all of this. I'll narrate live.
Here we go.
There it is. All right, so as we've talked about, security is really one of the biggest problems facing software today. So I have a demo repo that we put together in GitHub. This is nothing special, but I learned about a security vulnerability. I have an eval in my HTML or my index.html. It's a terrible move, I know, but at least I can now fix it, right? So I'm going to go to the security tab and start by creating a new draft advisory. There are no tricks here. This is one cut, so if I'm being slow on the screen, it's just because I talk too much. So we're going to type in some of the basic details, and what you'll notice about this is it looks like an issue, and that's deliberate. We really want to make sure that when we're going through and creating these advisories, we create the smallest amount of friction possible to get you started and working with the other collaborators on your repository. We want to make sure that you get the conversation started so that you can get into the fix as fast as possible. At this point, we have a draft advisory. Now, I showed you earlier how you can add collaborators, but in this case, I think the best move is just to go straight to the patch. I know where the bug is. I know how to fix it. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a temporary private fork. On large repos, this might take a couple minutes. We're actually creating a fork. If it's a big repo, it might take a minute. This one's really small, so this will not take us very long at all.
And you can see on the right-hand side there is the access list.
There we are. Okay, so from here, all we're going to do is we're going to open the repo. And you could click on that link. I didn't actually know that until a couple days ago. So I copied and pasted. And I'm just going to go into the repo and make a change in index.html. So I mentioned there was an eval here. You can see right there in the search text, we have the eval statement. That was clearly a terrible mistake that should have been removed earlier. So we'll just go ahead and knock that out and create a pull request. None of this should look weird. This is all your normal process. Even though you're part of a security advisory here, everything should feel really natural and like you don't have to bring a lot of extra knowledge or tools. One thing that's really important here, we don't run any CI and we don't run any tests at PR time. And the reason for that is we don't want to risk disclosure of the vulnerability before you're ready to publish. So once you have all of your patches ready, then your base repo's CI can run. All right, so we have the pull request ready, and you can see that it's one click if I want to merge this and get it ready to go. As Bryan mentioned earlier, we know a lot of repos have a continuous integration suite that may take minutes or hours or days to run. We hope it's not days. But we want to get you unblocked on getting the packages published if you have any assets like that. We know that might take a while. And so we'll just one click to merge the pull request, and this will kick off all of the normal things that happen in the parent repo around taking those changes in. And then as soon as I've done that, I'm now ready to get on to the publish stage, which is filling out that necessary metadata to help alert users as to what's happening. Now, in this case, there's no package, there's no library, so all I really need to do is type in a version number. I could go into more detail about some of the things around the impact, but for the sake of expediency, I'm just going to go ahead and publish. And what happens when we finish this publish process, When we hit the publish button, this will immediately become public to all users in the repo. So if you go to the security tab, you'll be able to see any of the published advisories available there. So regardless of whether you have downstream dependencies or not, your users will have transparency into the security things that you've made the choice to fix. So last button here is the publish button, and we will press that.
Here we go.
And one final comment that I want to make on this one is once you've published, this goes into a review queue that we run at GitHub. And the key point that we're trying to make there is we want to make sure that anytime you use one of these advisories, that we have all the right metadata and that we can target the alerts to the right people. If we don't need to send alerts, we certainly won't. But we want to make sure we don't have duplication. We talked about all the white source data that we're pulling in. We do not want to have multiple alerts, so we have individual engineers that evaluate each one of those alerts and make sure that we don't double alert. With that, 5 minutes in, and we've gone through the entire process of creating a draft, working on a patch, merging the patch, and publishing it back to GitHub.
Cool. So yeah, like we want to encourage you to actually try this out. Like security is a process. You can create your own test repository. You can then generate a fake package.json file if you want, and then go to your security tab, open up a draft security advisory, and kind of run through this whole thing yourself. Don't publish it to us because we don't want those things. You can try, but like run through the whole process, like test it out. Because when this actually happens, when you actually get a vulnerability reported, you want to have like seen the whole process, like have familiarity with it before that kind of black swan event happens to you or one of the projects you maintain.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have a mic.
And we have some time for questions if we want to take some in the room. But we want to also end a little early because I know some of the other sessions have been running late. So let's just keep that in mind.
And our plan is we're going to come down front and kind of be available. Justin and I will also be, I'm pointing to wherever the Ask GitHub group is. It's like down through the floor. We'll also be down there to kind of field questions. If you have questions or concerns you'd like to bring up, we'd love to talk through those. So, any questions out there in the audience? Anyone want to come up?
All right.
Doesn't look like it.
It looks like an easy crowd. Oh, we've got a microphone right up here. Come,
all right.
Run on up.
Hi. Quick question. How does it look? Okay. How does it look the main repository after the pull request has been merged in the advisory repository? Is it just like a commit, or there is a pull request about it?
So it ends up being a merge pull request. So it's a lot like when you merge from a fork.
So the pull request is visible also on the list of pull requests as on the main repository or not? What I mean is because sometimes between tagging the repository with the release and merging a pull request, sometimes it could take even some time. So
yeah, I'd have to double check on that. I'm not actually sure off the top of my head exactly what it looks like, but it does go back to the main repo, and it's part of the commit tree and all of that. So
okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Last call for any other questions? Any hands? No? Oh.
I just want to finish by saying thank you everyone in the community for caring about this. You know, one of the things that we really hope to do with this tool is help make it easier for all of you to disclose and fix your security vulnerabilities in the right way. Because ultimately, you know, software runs on trust. And you know, Nat showed this morning the data that we have about exactly, you know, how many contributors you have, how many open source dependencies everyone has, and you know, security relies on all of us. We're all security engineers, and we all have to take responsibility for doing disclosure and patching in the right way. So we hope these tools will help you, and we appreciate everybody's attention to this problem because it's super amazing to see this kind of turn out. So
yeah.
Thank you.
And reach out to us. Either If you want to work on this advisories, if you want improvements or changes, connect with us however you can. If you have a vulnerability that's being reported and you're actively working in a security advisory, also reach out. You can use the collaborators list to add add people from our team into there to help you out. Like this shouldn't be a thing that you do alone. Just like Nat said in the keynote, right? This isn't a solitary activity. This is a team sport, and we want to get better at this as we move along. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time.